स्वादयन्निह सर्वेषाम् त्रय्यन्तार्थम् सुदुर्ग्रहम् स्तोत्रयामास योगीन्द्रः तम् वन्दे यामुनाह्वयम्। नमो नमो यामुनाय यामुनाय नमो नमः। नमो नमो यामुनाय यामुनाय नमो नमः। यत्पदाम्भोरुहध्यान विध्वस्ताशेषकल्मषः वस्तुतामुपयातोऽहम् यामुनेयम् नमामि तम्। स्वधर्मज्ञानवैराग्य साध्यभक्त्येकगोचरः नारायणः परम् ब्रह्म गीताशास्त्रे समीरितः। श्रीमान् वेङ्कटनाथार्यः कवितार्किककेसरी वेदान्ताचार्यवर्यो मे सन्निधत्ताम् सदा हृदि।
स्वादयन्निह सर्वेषाम् त्रय्यन्तार्थम् सुदुर्ग्रहम् स्तोत्रयामास योगीन्द्रस्तम् वन्दे यामुनाह्वयम्। नमो नमो यामुनाय यामुनाय नमो नमः। नमो नमो यामुनाय यामुनाय नमो नमः। यत्पदाम्भोर्गध्यानविध्वस्ताशेषकल्मषः वस्तुताम् उपयातोऽहम् यामुनेयम् नमामि तम्। श्रीमान् वेङ्कटनाथार्यः कवितार्किककेसरी वेदान्ताचार्यवर्यो मे सन्निधत्ताम् सदा हृदि। स्वधर्मज्ञानवैराग्य साध्यभक्त्येकगोचरः नारायणः परम् ब्रह्म गीताशास्त्रे समीरितः। स्वधर्मज्ञानवैराग्य साध्यभक्त्येकगोचरः नारायणः परम् ब्रह्म गीताशास्त्रे समीरितः। आत्मात्मिके निष्ठे योगलक्ष्ये सुसंस्कृते आत्मानुभूति सिद्ध्यर्थे पूर्वशक्येन चोदिते। So आत्मानुभूति सिद्ध्यर्थे, that is the third quarter of the second verse. Sukham atyantikam yat tat. Bhagavad Gita 6th chapter 21st verse. These words are there. Sukham atyantikam yat tat. इत्यादि उक्त प्रकारेण वैषयिक आनंद विलक्षणस्य इतर समस्त वैतृष्ण्य आवह सुख स्वभाव प्रत्यगात्म साक्षात्कार विशेष रूप सिद्धि विशेष प्रयोजने इत्यर्थः. So what is the meaning of Atmanubhuti Siddhyarthe? The last term, Arthe, meaning purpose, aim, goal. So in order to achieve that goal, so what is that goal? Siddhi, success. It's a successful goal, successful aim. So it will be a completion of the or fulfillment of the desire. But the desire is Atmanubhuti, realization of the Supreme Soul by the individual soul. Now that kind of what we call Anubhuti, the experience, will be a pleasure, will never be a pain. And it is not a temporary pleasure, transitory happiness. It is a pleasure endless in nature. Sukham atyantikam yat tat. Antam is the end. Atyantam is deep, or you can say. So atyantikam is still the end, or you can say no end, endless. Sukham atyantikam yat tat. It will be either fully pleasure or endless pleasure. Total happiness, unalloyed happiness, we say. Unalloyed happiness. It is not mixed with sadness. As per the life of the people in this world, we have both mixed up. the pleasure and the pain. So Gita in the 6th chapter, it is said here. So iti adi. So there are so many other statements also. Ityadi ukta prakarena, as it is said. Now we are not referring to the Vaishayika Anandam, the happiness that comes out of the things of this world. It is not worldly pleasure. Vaishayikam is Vishaya is object of pleasure of this world, worldly pleasure. So Vaishayika Anandam is the bliss, I mean the happiness that comes out of the objects of this world. Then, so Vilakshanasya, so this is different. This eternal pleasure is different from the materialistic pleasure. So Vilakshanasya, meaning different from. Different and unique also. Different and predominant, you can say. Prominent. Then, Itara Samasta Vaitrishnya Avaha Sukha Svabhava. It puts it in the background, relegates it into the background. All other, Itara, all other, Samasta, all, so all other, Vaitrishnam. Vaitrishnam is again the longing for pleasure. We never long for pain. So Vaitrishnam is what you call Dahaha, as we say in Sanskrit, meaning thirst. So we are thirsty. But the thirst with regard to the worldly pleasure, materialistic pleasure, so that is, the Krishna is thirst, the desire to drink water. There are two meanings of this Vaitrishnam. There is no thirst at all with regard to the materialistic pleasure. Whereas we have got a special thirst for realization of the individual soul with the Supreme Soul. So Vaitrishnya Avaha Sukha. So we can take it as Itara because there is the word Itara. So this Vaitrishnam refers to the materialistic pleasure, the thirst for materialistic pleasure, longing for the materialistic pleasure. Then Avaha Sukha Svabhava. Again, the attitude of Svabhava is the nature of pleasure that comes out of the worldly things. Then, so give it up, and then understand the difference between the eternal bliss and the temporary, transitory pleasures of this world. Then the Pratyagatma is the Jivatma. Then Jivatma will have Sakshatkara. Sakshatkara is realization, understanding. Vishesha Rupa, the special form. Then Siddhi is success, again Vishesha Prayojane. So this will be a special purpose. So remember the two lines. Now here Purva Shatkena Chodite, the first 6 chapters are for explaining Atmanubhuti Siddhyarthe. In order to understand and gain the realization as the highest pleasure, highest happiness. So coming to the next word, so Purva Shatkena Chodite. Sorry, the Sanskrit letter, it should be Chodite, not Chotite. Kartavyataya Anushishte iti yavat. Not yavat, it is yavat. Purva Shatkena Chodite in the sense, so it has been explained in the first 6 chapters. So what is the discussion for? It is the discussion for Karma Yoga. So Kartavyam is duty. So Kartavyataya Anushishte iti yavat. So yavat till the end of the 6th chapter, first 6 chapters, you have some instructions given, anushishte, the procedure to be followed to do the duty. Kartavyataya anushishte iti aham. So tadarthyat, it should be joined together. It cannot be tat, arthyat and so on. So tadarthyat upodghata rupasya prathamadhyayasya natu eva avahan. Iti, so Gita, Bhagavad Gita, second chapter, 12th verse. Natve vaham. Jatu nasam nattam neme naradhipaha. Nachaina na bhavishyamaha sarve vayam atah param. That is the second chapter, full 12th verse. So tadarthyat upodghata rupasya prathamadhyayasya natve vaham. Natve vaham. It cannot be separated as nat, iv, then eva aham. It is natu eva aham. Natu eva aham is the natve vaham. So iti atah purvasya, iti atah purvasya dvitiya adhyaya ekadeshasya cha tat anupravesha vacho yukti. Now, so when these first 6 chapters are taken into consideration, now the first stress is on the karma yoga. Then, so in order to achieve that karma yoga, there is an introduction. So in the form of introduction, in the first chapter, in the first chapter, follow the second chapter following the first chapter, Natve Vaham. Arjuna is being instructed by Lord Krishna as this way. There is no time in which we can say that you were not there. That is, Arjuna was not living earlier. Nor that I was not there, then I came suddenly, appeared before you as Lord Krishna. Meaning, all the souls are immortal. They don't die. There is no death for the individual soul also. Natve vaham. Right, this is it. Natu eva aham. So there, at any time, all the souls live, exist without death. So there is no particular time when you were not there and I was not there. Every time we were there. It is in the name of Arjuna and Lord Krishna and some other name. Names will be different. But we were there. So iti, thus, ataha, therefore, so purvasya dvitiyadhyaya ekadeshasya cha tadanu praveshaha vacho yukti. Now, this sentence says that each chapter will have a cogency with the next chapter or the previous chapter. So first chapter will have a link with the second with the third with the fourth with the fifth, and fifth with the sixth. So the second chapter will have an understanding, or say will have an entry, anupraveshaha, that is, I am following, the entry will be followed, and therefore it is said purva shakkena in the verse. Purva shakkena meaning, so each adhyaya, each chapter in the Bhagavad Gita is preceded by another chapter. So first chapter, of course, there is no previous chapter. So the first chapter is the beginning. And there you find only Arjuna Vishada Yoga. Arjuna is very sad. And then only we get to Karma Yoga in the second chapter. So Karma Yoga is related to remove the sadness of the individual soul. Here it is Arjuna. Then, so it is continuity is maintained between chapters and from one to another. That's the meaning of this one. Then ahuhu, not ahuhu. It is ahuhu cha. So the meaning ahuhu means said. It is also said, they said, Upadghata Lakshanam. What is the definition of an introduction? How do we give a forward? What we call prelude, or you can say proem. How do you introduce a subject? So, Chintam Prakriti Siddhyartham Upadghatam Prachakshate. Siddhyartham is not Siddhyartham, it is Siddhyartham. Okay, sorry, Siddhyartham. Okay, Chintam Prakriti Siddhyartham Upadghatam Prachakshate. The introduction is called so. Upadghataha is called so as introduction because it is a, no, it is not Siddhyartham only, sorry, Siddhyartham, because it is Chintam. Chintam is feminine gender, therefore it should be Siddhyartham only. So Chintam Prakriti Siddhyartham. So there will be a flow of thought, and that flow will be natural, and there will be success for the thought. A thought process will end in good results. That will be what we call introduction. See how an introduction has been defined, very beautifully defined, because whenever we take a subject, consider a subject, study a subject, when we see the introduction should give, in essence, what will be explained later. So it will be a flow of thought, and it will be a natural flow of thought. It is not a mix-up of thoughts. It is not a flow of confusing thought, and it should naturally develop, and that should lead to a good result. It should not lead to a bad result. So that will be the introduction. So evam anena shlokena, that means by the second verse, by this second verse, prathama shatkasya, of the first six chapters of the Bhagavad Gita, avara tattva vishaya vyavahita upaya paratvam uktam. Again, the two words, two aspects are there. So, what is number one is avara tattvam. The second one is avara tattva vishayaha. Then second one is vyavahita upaya paratvam. That has been mentioned very briefly in the second verse. What is mentioned? There are two aspects. Number one, avara tattva vishayaha. The matter relating to the principle, namely the lesser being the individual soul. He is in another way you can put it as a smaller one against the greater one, a slave towards the master. So avara tattvam is a grade below, a grade down. It's a lower grade. So avara tattvam is a lower grade principle, is the individual soul. Vyavahita upaya paratvam, when the Lord Sriman Narayana, or what we call Almighty, that Almighty is the means for realization. So it has already been fixed, Vyavahita. So Vyavahita upaya paratvam uktam. So what is the essence of this second verse is, here the third quarter will be Atmanubhuti Siddhyarthe Purva Shakkena Chodite. Sorry, it is again not second chap Chodite, third da in the middle. Third da in the middle. It is not the soft consonant D in the middle. The first letter is right. First cha. Chodite is first cha, and that is, so first letter is not cha. It's not a hard consonant. It's a soft consonant. Yeah, chodite, right. So purva shakkena chodite. Chodanam is what we call analysis, testing. You can also say that is shodhanam also. Research. Here it is chodite again, also meaning inducing. So inducing the realization of the individual soul with the supreme soul through the first 6 chapters. And we saw there is a stress on the karma yoga, and the introduction will give us both the lesser quality of the individual soul plus the higher quality or highest quality of the Supreme Soul, which acts as the means to realization. Upaya Paratvam. So Upaya Paratvam is this should be the meaning of the second verse. Jnana karmatmike nishte yoga lakshye susamskrute atmanubhuti siddhyarte purva shakyena chodhi.
So my question would be that here we're talking about the first 6 chapters, and are the first 6 chapters considered to be an introduction, or is it just that you said that each chapter proceeds from the previous chapter, but here the grouping is of the first 6 chapters, and the explanation was that Atmanubhuti Siddhyarte is the goal to have the perfection of knowing the self. So is that the goal of the first 6 chapters, or is that the goal of the whole work, or is that the goal of only the first chapter?
No, this is the goal of the whole work, and the first 6 chapters lead you to the goal.
I see. So the first 6 chapters, in this sense, is considered to be an introduction to the work.
Yeah. The first 6 chapters guide us to go to the goal. And this practice of Karma Yoga leading to Jnana Yoga. So we saw the meaning of Yoga Lakshya also. So Susamskrite, when they are all the 3 are refined. So when the individual soul has performed the action properly, perfectly, and it has led to the wisdom, spiritual wisdom that he has gained, and then he has gone to bhakti and prapatti. Yet to, of course, yet to elaborate on that. So when it has been refined, well refined, then the first 6 chapters give you the guidance to go to the Atmanubhuti Siddhi, to achieve the realization.
All right, but again, only karma and jnana are directly mentioned here, and not bhakti, and definitely not prapatti. They're not mentioned here. So it's when it's saying that karma jnana at karmatmike nishte leads to the goal of the whole work, the atmanubhuti siddhyarte. So it actually karma and jnana only lead to the goal of the work indirectly, because they are the means by which bhakti and prapatti arise. So it's they only lead to it indirectly.
As you said, Karma Yoga itself can lead to moksha.
Yes.
Karma Yoga can itself lead to moksha. But
that's very rare, very rare. King Janaka, you said King Janaka, yes?
That's only one instance. But again, Jnana Yoga comes as the fringe benefit, what you call side effect of the Karma Yoga. There, Karma Yoga is predominant, that's the meaning. So Jnana Yoga is at the background. It's not completely wiped out. Without Jnana Yoga, you cannot have realization. In this first 6 chapters, both are stressed. Jnana karmatmike. The karma should be always associated with jnana also. And it is not mentioned here either prapatti or bhakti, because the bhakti will come only in the last 6 chapters. That bhakti will transform into prapatti. And that will be, the word prapatti is a special term for this Vaishnava Sampradaya, whereas all the other commentators have stopped with bhakti, from karma, jnana, and up to bhakti. The second 6 chapters only give you Jnana Yoga. First 6 chapters refer to the Karma Yoga only. Of course, Karma Yoga should lead to Jnana Yoga. Again, Jnana Yoga should lead to. So, second 6 chapters will lead to third 6 chapters, final 6 chapters, when Jnana Yoga fructifies as Bhakti, results in Bhakti. And then Bhakti, how do you, I mean, we are going to see how Bhakti will be the difficult means to adopt, and then Prapatti will be the easiest means advised by the Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya.
So again, I have a doubt here. Why in the second verse jnana is mentioned? Because as you say, karma yoga is in the first 6 chapters, only karma yoga is described. At the end of the first 6 chapters, yoginam api sarvesham madgatenantaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yukta tamo mataha is the last verse of the 6th chapter. So it seems to indicate only up to karma yoga. And so why is Jnana Yoga even mentioned here as part of this of the first 6 chapters?
I told you, the second, the word that comes later has got more significance. I told you the formula, the grammatical formula also, aphorism, which means karma is very important. But jnana is also, I told you, a byproduct. As you said, people practicing only Karma Yoga are very rare. There's only one example, only illustration, namely Janaka. Whereas everybody is led to Jnana, the wisdom. The wisdom is the character of the individual soul as well as the Supreme Soul. Jnananandamayam is Brahman. Brahma is Jnananandamayam. Okay. So also in the individual soul. Why individual soul is also Jnananandamayam? Because the individual soul has got in its inner self the Supreme Soul. The Supreme Soul gets never separated from the individual soul. So the wisdom, the spiritual wisdom lies within the individual soul. And we cannot dismiss it. We usually, practically we say that even if you don't believe God, even if you say God is not in my heart, then the God resides in you. God lives in you. You cannot dismiss him by your desire because you are not independent. You are only dependent. You cannot have a sway over everything. You are helpless already. So you are not a master of the situation. You are a slave. And therefore, you cannot say, I don't want jnana. I want to perform my duty well and get moksha. It is the will of the God.
So, so can we also say, because you said that each chapter leads into the next chapter and gives an indication of the next chapter, can we also say that this verse, which speaks about the first 6 chapters, also gives an indication of the next 6 chapters, which is Jnana Yoga?
That's obvious, because when the 6 chapters within have what we call cogency, connection, link, and so on, the next 6 cannot be a separate entity. So the next 6 is preceded by the first 6. And the first 6 should have a link with the next 6. Otherwise, there is no point in reading a book with 3 chapters completely different from each other. 3 sets of chapters completely different from each other. You are right in it is either guessing or you have understood it very rightly that all the 18 chapters have got connection with each other, linked with each other. The first 6 is related to the second 6, the second 6 is related to the third 6, and again the third 6 is related to the first 6. It's a cycle. It's an endless cycle. So once you go to bhakti, now that's what we people think. When I am a devoted person to the God, why should I do karma? Why should I perform my duty? That's a thought that comes into our mind. So the karma yoga should be practiced even if one achieves the bhakti. So it is interrelated. It's never disconnected.
So the idea of Adi Shankaracharya that the Charma Sloka or Gita 1866 mentions that we should give up all action is not correct, because as you're saying, when Krishna says to abandon all varieties of religion or to abandon sarva dharman parityajya, that what he's actually saying is not to give up action, but to give up wrong action and to continue with karma yoga.
Give up the fruits of action.
Give up the fruits of action. I see. But still, the action continues, as you said. Again, from the last part of the Gita, we go back to karma and jnana. We're going to continue to perform karma and jnana, but without desiring the fruits.
Yeah. As long as the individual soul lives in this world, you cannot give up karma yoga.
Swami, regarding the second line of this verse, which says yoga lakshya susamskrite. So this part means I'm actually trying to understand two parts in it. One is the nishtha, and second is the susamskrita. So how these two things can be related, because something is aimed here or aspired here in terms of yoga lakshya, and then it leads to atmanubhuti. So these three things basically: nishtha, susamskrit, yoga lakshya, and then something is siddhyarthe, which is atmanubhuti.
I think you can understand it very easily as nishtha is discipline. Nishtha is discipline. Your involvement, your interest and care to do what? To do your duty and to gain wisdom. So that is nishtha. So jnana, karma, both together constitute the nishtha. That's why atmike, the nishtha, the discipline, the physical and the mental discipline, you can say. The physical and the mental discipline, the discipline of the heart, or discipline of the mind, involves as its soul both karma and jnana yoga. So this is nishtha, discipline. When you start following this discipline, when you start practicing this discipline, that is, practicing the discipline is, for example, while you do your action, you don't expect the fruits of your action. And while you are getting the knowledge, spiritual knowledge, you understand that you are only a lesser being in quality and quantity, and there is a greater being called the Supreme Soul, and you are a slave, you are called Avara Tattvam, as we just now saw. So you have got lower status.
Right.
You are. I mean, look at the steps of surrender, which we have discussed earlier. That we are helpless. We are a helpless soul. We don't have a control over everything, and even we don't have a control over ourselves. So this is what we call getting into the discipline. So once you get into the discipline, so you must go on developing yourself. That's what called susamskriti. Your discipline becomes refined, more and more refined. In the sense, improve.
That is called susamskrit.
That is called nishtha becomes susamskrita. Susamskrita, Samskrita generally meaning, here it is not the language Samskrita, Sanskrit, but it is Samskrita means well done, as you know. The word Sanskrit also meaning Samskritam is Samyak Kritam. So when you perform actions well, and how well, more and more, or you can say better. It's not simply stopping with well. You do well your actions. No, you do better next time. So that better, the word better can be understood by Susamskrit, well refined. So your action can be the best. Others
Right.
should be following you. You should be an example. You set an example, and you are the model for others. When you are the model for others, then that means you are the best. You are a role model. And when you
Right.
are a role model, it's meaning Susamskrita. But Yoga Lakshya,
Right.
we have been
So while
discussing
aiming at some,
also whether Yoga Lakshya refers to only Jnana and Karma, or it goes to the level of Bhakti and then finally Prapatti according to the Sampradaya, our Sampradaya. Therefore, this Nishtha, the discipline, is now well refined, Susamskrite.
Susamskrita.
When this happens, the Karma Yoga Nishtha, the discipline of performing the action, initially imperfect, becomes more and more perfect. And then gaining wisdom is initially imperfect. You think you are the master of yourself. You think, we had the analogy, a king always thinks that he is the highest human being on earth, and he can do anything that he likes and all should obey him. His son, his family, his wife, his subjects, all should obey him. If they do not obey him, he gets angry. Why he gets angry? Because he has got what we call Rajasic quality, the quality of haughtiness. And because he thinks that he thinks high of himself, he thinks he is a leader, he can do anything that he likes. He doesn't feel any time helpless. He always feels that he can help himself, he can help others, he can help the kingdom to prosper, and so on. So that is about a haughty king.
Right.
Whereas when you feel small over the entire creation, that is, you are only a small droplet in the big ocean. The big ocean is a creation, and we are all only a small drop, not even a drop, is an iota of a single molecule of water. Then this, so that when you understand the relationship between the individual soul and the supreme soul in the discipline called the Jnana Yoga, that will become more and more Susamskrita, refined,
Right.
and that will
So-
lead to Atmanubhuti.
Right. Okay.
When
Can I
you
ask
understand
two
the
points,
greatness of
related
God,
points?
then you will realize God.
Right.
So how to understand the greatness of the Lord? By studying scriptures and other related shastras. How to get the knowledge from the spiritual wisdom from the scriptures? Take an acharya as a guide. Before going to an acharya, perform all your duties perfectly. These are all interrelated.
Right.
And all should be Susamskrita. The karma, the yoga, karma yoga, the action, performance of action should be refined. The jnana should be refined. And jnana, we had seen a lot of qualities with regard to Almighty in the last chapter. We had a lot of, I think Yashoda Swami will guide you to that paragraph where we mentioned the qualities of the Lord. Many qualities of the Lord. Only few qualities have been mentioned in the commentary called Gita Sangraha Raksha by Swami Vedanta Deshika on this Gita Sangraha of Sri Yamunacharya. But whereas there are so many other qualities also, endless number of auspicious qualities mark the Supreme Soul. So when we understand all those qualities, that means we have gained wisdom. And that will be called Susamskrita Jnana, well refined knowledge. Then that will lead to Atma Sakshatkara. Atma Sakshatkara is another term for Atmanubhuti. Anubhuti is the experience of the greatest bliss, being one with the Supreme Soul by the individual. So Madhyame Bhagavat Tattva याथात्म्य अवाप्ति सिद्धये ज्ञान कर्माभिः निर्वर्त्यो भक्ति योगः प्रकीर्तितः. Karmabihi, it's not karmabihi. It's not a long vowel. Jnana karmabihi. Jnana karmabihi nirvartyo bhakti yogaha prakirtita. Again, so madhyame meaning in the middle. So the middle meaning in the middle six. How do you understand madhyame meaning simply in the middle, in the center? Then that will become middle six, because the previous verse purva shatkena chodite. The word purva is then the previous. Shatka is six, a group of six. Shat is six. Shatkam is a group of six. Purva shatkena is there in the what we call instrumental case, Tritiya Vibhakti. Moonram Vetame in Tamil. But here it is Saptami Vibhakti. Madhyame, in the middle. In the middle means in the middle 6 chapters. So what is explained? Prakirtitaha. Previously it was Samiritaha. That has been well explained in the previous verse. Samiritaha. Purva Shatkena Chodite was there. The word Chodite was there. And the first verse, Samiritaha, well said, well explained. Whereas Prakirtitaha means is sung in praise. Prakirtitaha. Kirti is fame. Pra means well done. So Prakirtitaha means well praised, well adored, well eulogized, well appreciated. That is the meaning of it. So what is appreciated in this middle six? Bhakti Yogaha Prakirtitaha. Now, we were expecting that only the next 6 will talk about Jnana Yoga. Because the first 6 will be Karma Yoga, the second will be Jnana Yoga, the third section will be Bhakti Yoga. That's normal flow. But already we mentioned Jnana Karmatmike Nitte. So these two have been mixed up in the first 6 chapters. Both are mentioned in the first 6 chapters, and therefore now Bhakti Yoga is predominant in the next 6, namely the middle 6. So Madhyame. So what is Bhakti Yoga? It will be a completion, Nirvartyaha. Nirvartya, it will be a completion of Jnana Karmabi. So Jnana is wisdom, gaining spiritual wisdom, and karma is the yoga of action, the discipline of action. So Jnana Karma Bihi, it is in Bahuvachanam, it is plural. Why plural? So Bhakti Yoga is included there. And how can you include Bhakti Yoga when it is said separately? Because I told you there is interconnection. It is interlinked. So Jnana, Karma and Bhakti Bihi should be there instead of, because there are only 8 syllables possible in a quarter. You cannot have more than 8 nor less than 8. You cannot even have 7.5 or 8.5, because half syllables are there. Half the consonants are half letters. So Jnana Karma Bihi Nirvartyaha means should be completed. Or it is easy, it is possible to complete, it is possible to come to a finish. So Jnana Karma Bihi Nirvartyaha Bhakti Yoga. Bhakti Yoga, the discipline of devotion, getting completed by, again I change the order. Jnana Karma Bihi will Karma Jnana Bihi. Jnanaihi. Karma Jnanaihi. So karma is again the first predominant performance of action, then jnana gaining the wisdom. So jnana karma bihi nirvartyaha. Why? Why should we perform Bhakti Yoga? Why should we follow the discipline Bhakti Yoga, preceded by Karma and Jnana. Already we saw Atmanubhuti Siddhyarthe. We saw in the third quarter of the second verse. Atmanubhuti Siddhyarthe. The same expression is given in different terms. Same meaning is given in different terms, namely Bhagavat Tattva Yathatmya Avapti Siddhai. The Siddhyate will be replaced by Siddhaye, the thought. Instead of using the another word purpose, aim, goal, artha, it is simple now, Siddhaye. So what is to be successful? What is to be attained? What is to be reached? Avapti, so getting. Avapti is reaching, getting. So Avapti Siddhaye is getting to the destination. So what is that destination? Yathatmyam. Yathatmyam is the true nature, the original form. Yathatmyam is as is, where is condition. So it is true condition, true. It is never false. It ever exists. So Yathatmyam. So what is that Yathatmyam? Bhagavat Tattvam, the principle of the Almighty. Bhagavat Tattvam. Tattvam is principle. Again, an Advaiti will say, what you call the devotees of Shiva will say, the Supreme Soul and the individual soul are one and the same. They can have Sayudyam, oneness in everything. But where the Vaishnava, Shiva Vaishnava Sampradaya doesn't accept at all. So Bhagavat Tattvam is Paratattvam. Whereas we are all Avaratattva. Again, I remind you the commentary, word from commentary. So Avaratattva, and then again I remind you the commentary, the word from the commentary, Upaya Paratva. So Bhagavat Tattvam is, we have to understand it as we are all lesser beings, we are not greater than the Supreme Soul. We are all slaves. We are all under the control. We are helpless. Only God can do everything. Only God can protect us, save us from trouble. And we are not able to save ourselves from trouble. So Bhagavat, so that is Bhagavat. So Bhagavat Tattva is again understand that he is the Upaya, he is the means. There is no other strategy to method to approach the God to realize. So he himself gives the support. We saw the word earlier, avalambanam. Avalambanam is support. The support is given by Lord himself to reach him, to realize him. And therefore that is the tattva. And he is a paratattva. He is the highest principle. So we also saw just in the previous commentary of the previous verse, Upaya Paratvam. Even the means are the highest. I just forgot to tell you, the means are the best means. There is no other method to approach the realization. If you adopt other methods, they will be only lesser in quality. The method will be lower in quality, and it may not be possible to achieve that success, namely realization of God. Atma Anubhuti, or you can take here Yathatmya Avapti. Understanding how God is. So Siddhaye, so Bhagavat Tattva Yathatmya Avapti Siddhaye. Then Jnana Karma Bhihi Nirvatyaha Bhakti Yoga. So Bhakti Yoga is to be practiced. The discipline of devotion has to be practiced and it should be completed with the help of Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga in turn. And in order to achieve or understand the nature of the Brahman, the true nature of the Brahman, namely the principle of the Bhagavan, Lord Almighty. So that has been sung, S-U-N-G, sung, prakirtitaha. whenever you praise someone, appreciate someone, it's what we call by verses, by poem. You praise somebody with a poem. It's not a prose work to appreciate. The poem is always composed to praise. So here is a poem. In the second 6 chapters are the poem. Again, Bhagavad Gita is in the form of a shloka with 8 syllables per quarter, 32 syllables in a verse, and it's called Anushtup Chandas. The rhyme is called Anushtup Chandas, and the type of 200, one of the 256 varieties is shloka. That is the entire Mahabharata, entire almost Ramayana. Because the definition of a big work, great work, will be little different at the end of each chapter. But in the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavad Gita also we have different patterns of rhyme in the end of the chapter. For example, Apuryamanam Achala Pratishtham. This is one of the lines in the first 6 chapters, which is beyond 8 syllables, and so on. So here, the third verse will tell you the essence of this second 6 chapter. So Bhakti Yoga Prakirtita. So the Bhakti Yoga is being sung. Has been sung. The past tense verb. Actually past tense noun. So because it is passive voice. So Tatha, then Madhyama Shatkasya. So Madhyame is given the meaning as Madhyama Shatkasya. Then Paratattva Vishaya Avyahita Upaya Paratvam. Now we have to understand the matter with regard to Paratattvam, the highest principle. And it will be a Hita Upaya, it will be a favorable means. And that will be the highest means also. So highest favorability and highest means. So Paratta Vishaya Avyavahita Upaya Paratvam. Now we don't understand immediately how Lord himself becomes the means to attain him. So it becomes a little undefined. Therefore, while you go through all the second 6 chapters, then you will have understanding how Lord is the means, only means, the best method to approach him. So Purva Shloke, so in the previous verse, namely verse number 2, Samasasthasyapi, though there is a compound word. What compound word? Purva Shatkena. So Shatka Shabdasya. The word Shatka is in the form of a compound called Purva Shatkena in the previous verse. So Purva, previous, Shatka is a group of 6 and so on. So Shatka Shabdasya of the word Shatka. Atra, here in the 3rd verse, Buddhya. So by your knowledge, Nishkrishya, designing, Viparinatasya Anushangaha. You have to change over to Madhyame will become Madhyama Shatke. So Viparinatasya meaning changing over. So changing over the word Madhyame will become Madhyama Shatke. It is extended like that because in the previous verse you have a compound word Purva Shatke. So Anushangaha is a follow-up. A follow-up of the change by deciding on our own wisdom or on our own intellect that Shatka Shabda, the word Shatka should be added with Madhyama and it should be ending in Saptami Vibhakti. So Madhyama Shatke instead of Madhyami. Again, so next one is Bhagavat Shabda. We saw that Bhagavat Tattva is the first line. Madhyame Bhagavat Tattva. What is the meaning of the word Bhagavat? So Madhya Shatkota, Madhyama Shatkota, when it is said in the second 6 chapters, the middle 6 chapters. So what is said in second 6 chapters is again the repetition of those qualities of the Lord. Sakala Jagat Eka Karanatva. He is the only cause of the entire world. Sakala, all, entire, whole, W-H-O-L-E. Then Jagat, the world, that is creation. Eka, only one. Karana, reason, cause. So Karanatva, he becomes the causal form. The Lord Almighty is the cause for all kinds of cause for all the world. All the world. We generally say there are 14 worlds. Divided into 7 each, 7 each. So the lower 7, the upper 7. So that we can take the detail later. So Sakala Jagadeka Karanatvam is he is the only cause of the entire world. Then second quality, Nirdoshatvam. So this is one by one the explanation of the word Bhagavat. Bhagavat. In Sanskrit, there is a beauty. Vatu meaning, Vatu is a suffix. In Bhagavat, Vatu is a suffix. That suffix will give two kinds of meaning. One is like. It is comparison. It is just as. So another meaning is Vatu is full of. So it is full of. Here it is full of. So complete in. So filled with. So Sakala Jagadeka Karanatvam is the first quality under the word Bhagavat. Then second quality is Nirdoshatvam. No blemish, no fault, no error, no mistake is attached to him. So Nirdoshatvam. There is no lacuna. There is no lacuna. Nothing is lacking here. Then in the Lord, then Kalyana Guna Akaratvam. Next quality is he is the storehouse of Akara is store. So Akaratvam is the storehouse of, you can also say source of, not only storehouse but the source of all the auspicious qualities. Kalyana Guna. This is where our Sampradaya differs from other Sampradayas, traditions, because we always support the Saguna Brahma. Saguna Brahma. We always advocate Saguna Brahma, and we give the meaning of the word Nirguna Brahma in the sense of Sarva Heyatva. Avoidable bad qualities are not there. So Kalyana Guna Akaratvam is the quality of being a storehouse of most auspicious qualities. So who is that? He is called Yogin. Yogin. So that will become in Saptami Vibhakti Yogini. Because in the Lord. So we saw Bhagavat Tattva. So we are now being explained. Bhagavat is being explained. So Yogini Parasmin Brahmani. So in the Lord, in the highest being, namely Supreme Soul, Brahmani. Brahmani is the Supreme Soul. Parasmin Brahmani, the highest Supreme Soul. Yogini Parasmin Brahmani. He is also a yogi. He also practices yoga. He also practices Karma Yoga. He also practices Jnana Yoga. He also practices Bhakti Yoga. He also practices Prapatti Yoga also. He fell down at the feet of Samudra Raja, the king of oceans, in order to build a bridge to go across the ocean to reach Sri Lanka in Rama Avatar. So he also adopts the Prapatti Marga, Prapatti Yoga. He also has got Bhakti Yoga as Rama towards the parents, as Krishna towards two pairs of parents, Vasudeva, Devaki, and Yashoda and Nandagopa. He has got a lot of Bhakti. Bhakti is meaning love. The love towards the cowherds and cowherders. Love towards cows. So Bhakti. So Karma Yoga is always involved in action. Though he is called Avapta Samasta Kama in Sanskrit, All his desires have been already fulfilled. No desire is unfulfilled for him. But still, he is doing everything. He is doing his duty. What is the duty he is doing? He is creating, he is sustaining, he is protecting, he is dissolving. So all these activities are continuous. He never stops doing anything. He never becomes idle. He is not an inert person. He is active, always active. Though he looks like sleeping in Srirangam, what we call the fiend sleep. It's called the fiend sleep. He is acting as though he is sleeping. He observes everything, what happens in the world, whole world. He is aware of everything. He blesses us with everything, and so on. So here, so Parasmin Brahmani, then Pratyaksharam. Pratyaksharam means every letter, every syllable. So Prakriti, Pratyaya, Rupa, Pratyaya, Rudibihi cha, Bhagavat Parasharadibihi, Niruktaha. It is not Naruktaha, it is Niruktaha. Drashtarya. It is not Naruktaha, it is Niruktaha. The last line. In the last line, Bhagavat Parasharadibihi Niruktaha. N-I, it is not N-A. Yeah. In Sanskrit also it should be modified. So how do you understand the Bhagavat Shabdaha? The otherwise the word Bhagavat Tattva is in the first line of the third verse. So Madhyame Bhagavat Tattva, then Yathatmya Avapti Siddhaye. That is the first half. Madhyame Bhagavat Tattva, Yathatmya Avapti Siddhaye. So join together the word, these two words, Yathatmya Avapti. Yathatmya Avapti Siddhaye. The single unit, Bhagavat Tattva Yathatmya Avapti Siddhaye. The single unit, the single big compound word. So here, so what do we see here? Every syllable we have to go deep into that and then find out what is Prakriti and what is Pratyaya. Meaning, what is the root word, what is the basic word, and what is the suffix used. So the whole compound word ends in Siddhaye, in Chaturthi Vibhakti, what we call dative case in English, non-gametame in Tamil. And then, so meaning for the sake of the getting, so for the sake of getting a success, getting a victory. Then the victorious result, the fruitful completion, Siddhaye. Then again, how is it, what for that is Siddhaye? Then we go back to the compound word, then one by one, we understand what is Bhagavat, what is Tattvam, and what is Yathatmyam, and what is Avapti. So when you look at split each letter and find out what is Prakriti, what is the basic word, what is the root word, and then what is the Pratyam suffix added, then Rudibihi. And you can also understand what is the connotation or some different meaning. So what is the root meaning, and then how is it changing now? If there is any change, then these are all already said by Bhagavat Parashara. Parashara Maharshi, the great sage, he is called Bhagavan. That's why Bhagavat Parashara, equal to Bhagavan. Meaning, Parashara Maharshi has realized the Supreme Soul. He knows who is who. He understands how God is. Therefore, Bhagavat Parashara, Adibihi, there are so many others also. Not only Parashara Maharshi, there are many people who have understood the Lord. They have given what is called a Nirukta, etymology. The etymology given by Bhagavad Parashara should be seen, Drashtavya. Must look into, must observe how etymologically the great sage Parashara has explained the word Bhagavat Tattva Yathatmya Avapti. Or you can simply say Bhagavat Tattva Yathatmya. How does he explain? It is in other words what we saw in the earlier expression, namely the the word Bhaga, there are two letters, two syllables, Ba and Ga. So this Ba and Ga refers to all the six qualities in the initial. Jnana, Bala, Aishwarya, Virya, Shakti, Tejas. These are the six qualities denoted by the word letter, the two syllables called the Bhaga. Bhakti is full of. So full of these six qualities plus many more, endlessly many more auspicious attribute is an attribute. So the meaning of this Bhagavat Tattva Yathatmyam is understanding that the Lord is the cause of all the world. Lord has no defect. Lord is the source or the storehouse of all auspicious qualities. He is a yogi. He is a practitioner of discipline. Then he is the highest God. And all this understanding should come through the sages like Lord Parashara. We have to look at the etymology. That is with regard to the word Madhyame. Any feedback?
Swami, my only question here about this thing is that why specifically is mentioned Parasara? Because Mahabharata and Bhagavad Gita are, of course, the authored by Vedavyasa, Parasara's son. But there was a mention of Vishnu Purana. I think we, in the previous class, we were discussing how Vishnu Purana is the greatest of the Puranas, and it is written by Parasara. But why here specifically Vedanta Deshika has mentioned Parasara Rishi, beginning with him?
There are two or three reasons why he is brought into. You have already given a reason for that, namely Puraneshu Vaishnavam. Puraneshu Vaishnavam. Bharate, Gita, and then so finally it ends with Puraneshu Vaishnavam. So Vishnu Purana is the best Purana. And therefore, that is why Parashara is, the name of Parashara is brought in. Number one. Vishnu Purana defines by the composer, namely Lord Parashara. He defines Vishnu in the terms of what we saw just now. Sarva Jagat Karanatva, Sarva Jagat Eka Karanatva, Nirdoshatva, and then Kalyana Kuna Akaratva, and so on. So all these qualities have been mentioned by Parashara. Number three, the very name suggests that he has defeated his enemies. Parashara. He has been the arrow to be sent to the enemies. And he won over the enemies. And therefore nobody can oppose him. So he is above all in arguments. His Vishnu Purana is great. And Vishnu Purana extols, as the title itself suggests, Vishnu. And Vishnu is the highest being. All the Puranas accept. For example, we were discussing that the Bhagavata Puranam is considered the best Purana among the 18 or 19 Puranas, I would say. Parashara Vishnu Purana stands unique, different from 18 Puranas. 18th Purana, Mahabharata, and the Bhagavata Purana is also added among the major Puranas, greater Puranas. So Bhagavata Puranam, he talks a lot about Krishna in the 10th skanda, 10th chapter. And of course, all the other incarnations are also explained in the first 9 chapters and also in the last 2 chapters, 11 and 12. But at the same time, Bhagavata Purana has been praised, appreciated in Skanda Purana, Skanda Purana. The Puranam generally, generally all of us know that it extols a particular deity as the highest deity and brings to the background all other deities. Even if they are same incarnations of the same Lord. If you take Narasimha Purana or Kurma Purana and so on, Kurma becomes the highest Almighty, and all other incarnations, even Rama, Krishna, all are becoming lesser incarnations. In the sense, they want to praise to the sky the hero of the Purana. But the Skanda Puranam is in contrast with normally the nature of a Purana. The Skanda Purana praises, appreciates Bhagavata Purana, that it is the best. Ashtadasha Puraneshu Uttamam Bhagavatam. It says Bhagavatam is the best among the 18 Puranas. Then why should the Skanda Purana, the Purana of Kartikeya, Purana of Lord, what we call Guha, son of Parvati, he has been explained, normally he is the highest deity in that Purana, but whereas Skanda Purana gives a list of slokas which praise to the sky Bhagavata Purana, Srimad Bhagavata Purana. Therefore, what I say is, because Vishnu has been extolled by Parashara, Vishnu Purana is considered the highest, and Parashara is considered the highest among the composers. That is why the reason Parashara is mentioned. Maybe Gita Sangra Yamunacharya has got a fascination for, rather Parashara has a fascination for Yamunacharya also.
I can appreciate the fact that the word Bhagavan or Bhagavat has been explained in 2 different ways in today's lecture. That one way is directly given in the commentary by Vedanta Deshika, and you explained also the other way, explaining Jnana, Bala, Kriya, Aishwarya, all these different aspects. So that was very nice. That two different ways of understanding Bhagavan or Bhagavat.
The most important quality that is expected of us is humility, modesty. That we are in no way equal or higher than the Almighty.
Also, this Mr. Lalit Saraswat, who he introduced himself in the chat, that he is a professor of philosophy at IIT Kanpur.
Oh.
And he asked a question in the chat. He had to leave, but he asked this question. He says, is there an implicit hierarchy amongst karma, jnana, and bhakti?
Strictly speaking, there should be no hierarchy. But generally, practically today, a laborer demands the same honorarium along with an educated person, equally with an educated person. But generally, it is not right. Physical action, physical skill is what we call motor skill. But again, of course, there should be some deftness in the skill. There should be an expertise in the skill, a sharp mind to do the action also. But studying a book, learning from the preceptor, and remembering and giving out the meaning of the knowledge that is gained should be considered more honorable. And therefore, Jnana Yoga takes the lead or takes over Karma Yoga. And whether you have spiritual wisdom or whether you perform actions perfectly, many people today say bhakti is very important. Bhakti is more important than the other two. Because even after gaining wisdom, if we don't have bhakti, if we lose bhakti while we are good at spiritual wisdom and good at performing actions, that again is despised by now people today. They say bhakti is more important. Bhakti is also through performing actions like Tiruvaradhanam, Puja, the worship of the Lord, doing Kainkaryam, what we call service to the Lord in different ways, in this earth and beyond. And then this is again, of course, bhakti. Again, bhakti. It is not enough that I keep it in my heart and say, I am a devotee. There are two types of bhakti again, Vachika Kainkaryam and Kayika Kainkaryam. I do service with the help of my body physically. I do service by word, meaning of the word in Vachika Kainkaryam is, for example, I study stotras, I pray and I read through the praises of the Lord, and I put the ideas across to an audience, to the people who are interested in receiving the knowledge. So again, so bhakti takes the first position, of course, with the help of jnana and karma only. You cannot say, I have got everything in my heart, all devotion in my heart, but I won't do anything. I can't read books. If you say that, then again bhakti may become useless. And the other side of it is bhakti of an uneducated person. He is also unblemished. He is also unmixed with bad things. That is also there. A person only performing good actions, doing good to others, and then having bhakti towards the Bhagavatam, that is more important than towards the Lord. Towards the Lord. So if they serve, it is enough if they serve a devotee of the Lord and feel the devotion. Then that is the highest devotion according to the Lord Himself. When you serve my devotee, I love you more, He says. Instead of doing service to me, He says. Again, so there is only what we call interlink. I mean, one cannot be claimed, one yoga cannot be claimed as the better as over the other, or best over the three.
Right. And also, I think I just wanted to mention in the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which is entitled Bhakti Yoga, Lord Krishna gives alternatives. He gives certain actions that can be performed as devotional acts, and he gives alternatives. If you cannot do this, do this. If you cannot do this, do this. And ultimately, if you cannot do anything, you are just simply doing karma yoga, giving up the fruits, palatyaga, of the action. This is considered also a type of bhakti yoga.
So
Swami,
it's our own personal interpretation whether there is a hierarchy among the three yogas. But generally, there is not to be.
Swami, I just wanted to ask, for one who's a prapanna, who is doing bhakti, like Tiruvaradhanam, etc., this is just classed as bhakti and not as bhakti yoga, right? It's a technicality. Just because we do this just as devotion to God, but not obviously for salvation.
Very, very nice. This is what we say, Ananya Bhakti. We don't want anything to be fulfilled. We don't want our desire to fulfill. We don't want moksha. We don't expect anything from the Lord, but service for service.
Yes. So technically, sorry.
Kainkaryam for kainkaryam. Service, that's what you call when you study a book, you study for the sake of study. Newman's idea of a university. So also karma, as you said, Tiruvaradhanam is my birthright. I want to do that. I don't want to expect anything from my Tiruvaradhanam. That's a very, very nice attitude.
Especially with Satvika Tyagam, it means that we aren't actually doing the Tiruvaradhanam. The Lord is doing it for His pleasure. So just even with that consciousness, we understand that He's actually using us and using all of the items, articles, whatever, just for His pleasure. And just the only thing I wanted to clarify is that what we are doing, that's called bhakti, but not bhakti yoga. Bhakti yoga is different because bhakti yoga means you're doing it for the purpose of attaining moksha through one's own effort.
Very
Correct?
nice that when you do Tiruvaradhanam, when you do what we call you do an earlier action called Upadhanam, collecting materials for the Tiruvaradhanam, the right materials in right quantity and quality, and then you do Tiruvaradhanam. And apart from, as you said, the karma phala tyagam, sacrificing the fruit of your own action, when you don't expect anything at all, that is why an illustration is like this. We pray orally by Vishnu Sahasranam. And after reciting the full Vishnu Sahasranam till the last word, Shankhabrannandaki Chakri Shargadhanva Gadadharaha Tathankapani Rakshobhyat Sarva Praharanayuda. He says this, and then say further Anamali Gadi Shargi, and then never say the list of what we call Phalashruti, where we get a lot of advantage. Itidam Kirtaniyase Keshavati Mahatmana Nam Sagasram Divyanam Asheshena Prakirtitam. Then they start the Phalashruti saying, Yaidam Sriniyan Nityam Yaschapi Parikirtayet. He gets the benefits of this world and next world. So the one who hears the Vishnu Sahasranama or one recites the Vishnu Sahasranama will get both benefits, namely of this pleasures of this world and pleasures of the next world. Aihikam Amishtikam. So this when you don't say that, you are not interested in even listing the advantages of recitation. That is the best way of.
Okay, so you're saying that for Prapanna, he doesn't even recite the Uttara Bhaga. Is that what you're saying?
Pardon?
Are you saying that for Prapanna, he does not even recite the Phala Shruti?
Yeah. You can give
So
up you can give up Phala Shruti and go to what we call Arjuna Vacha Padma Patra Vishalaksha Padmana Apasarotama. That is all the discussion between Arjuna and Lord Krishna, so that you understand there is a verse between Parvati and Shiva, Sri Rama Rama Rameti. And then Brahmo Vacha, Lord Creator said the scriptural words in different terms which all people can say. Namostvanantaya Sagasra Murtaye Sagasra Padakshi Shirorubhagave Sagasra Namne Purushaya Shashate Sagasra Koti Yugadharine Namaha. Then you get Bhagavad Gita verses Paritranaya Sadhunam, then Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna. Then finally you say Asta Vashatna Shitilashtadika. By just saying Narayana Shabda, every trouble is over and we get all good benefits. So here, in the recitation of these verses, only Phalashruti is left out.
Okay. Very interesting, because I've always heard that everyone chants the entire thing, even the Phalashruti. So I didn't know. I guess on a personal level, you can do like that. Yeah.
And in Akhanda Parayanam, in a continuous Parayanam recitation for one day, morning to evening, 6 to 6, dawn to dusk, and then 2 days or 3 days, we never say Phalashruti.
Very interesting.
But let me just ask here: if you don't, the phala is still there, but the phala accrues to the Lord. So what is the harm in saying the Phalashruti, right? Because the phala is still there, but the phala accrues to the Lord because He is the one who's doing it. So why should we leave it out? It's for Him.
One can still say Phalashruti with a detachment. So you are not interested in getting the phala. At the same time, you don't want to stop recitation.
But I understand the point that if you want to repeatedly chant Vishnu Sahasranama and you want to go on doing Nama Sankirtana by chanting all of the names of God, that the Phalashruti gets in the way of chanting more names of God. So we can do without the Phalashruti if we want to do many times, but in case we want to chant the whole Adhyaya from Mahabharata, it includes the Phalashruti also, no? So should we not also chant it because it is the phala accrues to Him?
Yeah. Now I will tell you in the coming session which are the parts of the full Vishnu Sahasranama. Even the questions by Yudhishthira and answers by Bhishma are not included in Mahabharata for Vishnu Sahasranama recitation. Though they are there, they are in a different place.
So the questions are not there?
The questions are there, but they are not adjacent to the Vishnu Sahasranama.
Ah, I see. And also, just another point: when I've seen when in Sri Vaishnava Sampradayam, when they're chanting Vishnu Sahasranamam, and of course there's some slight differences between Ramanujas or Parasara Bhattas and Shankaracharyas. We've gone through this before, and also Madhvacharya. They have some slight differences in the text. But after the end of chanting Vishnu Sahasranama, usually Panchayuta Stotram and some other stotras are chanted normally in Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, which are not chanted by Smartas or by other people. So maybe you can say something about why those stotras are also chanted directly after Vishnu Sahasranam.
That is what I just now said. Lord is happy when we praise His devotees, servants. So we continue after Artha Vishanna Shitilascha Bhitaha. We go to the Panchayuta Stotram. We recite Panchayuta Stotram, the 5 weapons. We recite those 5 stanzas on 5 weapons. And then again there is a Phalashruti. Vane Rane Shatru Jalagni Madhye Yadritshaya Patsu Mahabhayeshu Idam Patham Stotram Anakulatma Sukhi Bhavet Tatkrita Sarvarakshaha. There again we may be interested in Phalashruti because if you are caught in a forest alone, Vane Rane, if you are in the middle of a battlefield, Agni Madhye, when there is a fire accident, then again Yadritshaya Patsu. This is what coronavirus, the sudden attack, unexpected catastrophe. Bhayam is only fear that makes us feel the trouble. It's only
And
fear.
that's
now.
why I wanted to ask, isn't it, that asking for protection also is some phalam that we're looking for, isn't it? Even that we shouldn't ask for is if we do phala samarpanam.
You need not ask for protection also.
Yeah. So even Panchayuda Stotram, etc., asking for protection is not, I don't know, purely the consciousness of a prapanna, would you say?
And after Panchayata Stotram, we add what we call Dwadasha Nama Panjara Stotram.
Yeah.
We give the names of the 12 names of the Lord, and then how each form is different, how he is able to protect us, and so on. And then finally, we give a mix-up of lot of slokas, meaning in any emergency, we seek the help of the Lord. Then apadam apahartaram, and when people are in trouble, seek the protection of the Lord. And whenever we take a journey, we have a verse for Agrata Pratata Shiva. When we travel, we want to say that the Lord will protect us on all sides, front, back, on both sides. Then again, when you take medicine, remember the names of the Lord, Achyutananta Govinda. Then remember the holy water Ganges, which has to be drunk instead of the medicine, and so on. So all these are all some additions, and the purpose of these additions also is according to Kesavadas Swamiji's contention just now. He said Nama Sankirtanam is the aim of reciting many shlokas along with Vishnu Sahasranam.
So, but normally we are chanting Vishnu Sahasranama Parayanam and chanting the slokas, but there's also another method of chanting Vishnu Sahasranama, separate words, like in Archana, they do the Namavali. And so can you explain the difference between chanting the slokas, chanting the verses and full verses, and breaking the names and chanting Om Vishvaya Namaha, Vishnave Namaha?
Yes, Namavali.
Namavali, yes.
Yeah. So that will be even better than mentioning the names. Just mentioning the name. Vishnu Vishnu Vashatkaro Bhuta Bhavya Bhavat Prabhu. You can say Vishvaya Namaha, Vishnave Namaha, Vashatkaraya Namaha, Bhuta Bhavya Bhavat Prabhave Namaha, and so on. So this is better because each time we say I salute, I bow, I bring down my head to do namaskar. Therefore, that is also Namavali is better than recitation of the names. So we have just deviated from, of course, Gita-artha Sangraha. Again, of course, this is the purpose of Gita-artha.
Mama, one question.
Sorry.
Yeah, I learned a lot from this Vishnu Sahasranama. So when you recite from morning till evening, as you said, do we have to say the beginning introduction, or just the Vishnu Sahasranama is enough?
Just Vishvam Vishnu Vashatkaro again.
Okay, Mama. Yeah, that's good. That's good. I just wanted.
Restart with Vishvam Vishnu Vashatkaro.
Oh,
So don't go to the conversation between Yudhishthira and Vishnu.
yeah. Okay. So, but in the
No Akanyasa Param Karanyasa, Asya Sri Vishnu Divya, and also Dhyanam. So,
that's all not necessary, or that's necessary?
not that it is necessary, it is not custom. It's not a
Okay.
custom. And we first time when we start, we say that.
Okay. Got it. Okay.
And as Kesavadas Swami also said it here, in quick succession, he said, The time devoted to the names is more important than the time devoted to the Falashruti
Okay.
or the introduction.
Yeah.
So the time we get more time to say these names.
And I like the question Keshav Das asked, the difference between the Namavali and the Stotram. And it, to me, when you said the Namavali is much better, I should start doing that also. So good advice and good, yeah, very nice.
Now
question.
here I had the luck of fortune of saying the Namavali of Dhanvantari on the next day to Deepavali every year here.
I see.
Every year in the Dhanvantari Sannidhi, there will be a Thirumanjanam Abhisheka sponsored by the doctors of this area.
I see.
All the doctors come together. First Ayurvedic doctors, then allopathic doctors, homeopathy, naturopathy, Siddha, and all these doctors will come together, and we recite the Namavali instead of Dhanvantari Sahasranam. Vishnu Sahasranam will be recited in Namavali fashion.
I see. Okay, very nice.
So it's the daily practicing.
Yeah.
So in Sri, sorry.
No problem. You can just.
No, I was just going to ask, so is the daily practice in Sri Rangam that everyone chants Vishnu Sahasranama daily?
No, our practice should be either in the morning or in the evening at home.
Okay, so morning or evening, no problem.
At home.
The next question I wanted to ask with respect to Vishnu Sahasranama again, because there is this saying, I don't know if you have ever come across a pramanam by Chinnajir Swami, who says that if one works out the pada of their Janma Nakshatra, that there's a verse of Vishnu Sahasranama which corresponds to that. And he said that verse is even more powerful for that particular person. Like, for instance, my nakshatra is Ashwini Nakshatra and third pada. So therefore the verse I chant is Yogo Yoga Vidam Neta Pradhana Purusheshwaraha, like that. Have you ever heard anything like that? Or is that a concoction? Or is it an actual pramanam that says that after you chant Vishnu Sahasranama, throughout the day you can also chant your particular verse which corresponds to your nakshatra pada?
Has he connected Ashwini Nakshatra with the Yoga Vidam Neta?
Third pada is third verse, because it's 108 verses. So if you do the 27 nakshatras and padas, you get 108 verses. So everyone's, according to their nakshatra and pada, they have a specific verse that if they constantly chant, it's supposed to even be more beneficial for them. Even though as prapannas, we don't look for benefit, but for somehow, I guess they say these things in order to make one, I guess it's kind of like marketing. You can chant more, you get a chance to chant that verse throughout the day, even though we have Dvaya mantra to also chant throughout the day.
It sounds like some system of, it sounds like some sort of contraction system, like Munadi Pinadi. If you don't have time, then you have one specific sloka or one specific verse that you concentrate on. But my question about this is, you're saying there's 108 verses, but there are 107 verses, and then Vanamali Gadi Shanki. But do we say that there are 108 verses, including Pranava Omkara at the beginning? Om Vishwam Vishnor. Om itself can be considered as a full verse, right, as one verse, or do we consider Vanamali Gadi Shanki as the 108th verse? So we consider that there are 108 verses, but there are actually only 107 verses of names.
Yes.
So do we include Pranava in the beginning as a name, or do we include Vanamali Gadi Shanki at the end as a name in the 108? My question.
You are right, but who said it should contain 108? 107 verses will contain 1008 names or 1000 names. It will be minimum 1000 names.
So,
If you add
so
Vanamali Gadishangi,
Swami was saying, he was saying there's 108 padas, 28 nakshatras, or 27 nakshatras times 4. 27 times 4 is 108.
Yeah.
So if we divide Vishnu Sahasranama by 108, there's 107 sloka verses. So where is the 108th? Is it Vanamali Gadishanki, or is it, if you in your system of dividing into 108, or is it Pranava? Because if it's Pranava, then your idea of Yoga Vidan Netra being the third one, it will only be it'll be the fourth one.
Right.
But if Vanamali Gadishangi is the 108th, then it will be the third one. So that is my question. Which is the Pranava the first one? Or
no, the Pranava syllable cannot be taken as single verse. So Vanamali can be taken as 108. And again, just for your query of why, when the yoga becomes the fourth verse and so on. Ashwini is the first star. So there's no relationship between the numbers. Only the name of the meaning of the nakshatra. Ashwini is the name of the doctor among the 33 crores of gods. They are twins in nature. They are the most handsome gods. Among the gods, they are the most handsome. And these are about the particular star. But for your information, in scripture, today we have developed that practice very frequently. In the month of Kartika, just before Dhanurmasa, the Tamil Margari, otherwise called Margashirsha, we have what we call a recitation called Kritika Parayana. Kritika Parayana. So Kritika is the first star in the list. Please remember that. So don't say Ashwini, Bharani, Kritika, then Rohini. Kritika is not the third star. Kritika is the first star. So taking Kritika as the first star, and end with Ashwini, end with again Kritika, 27. Say end with Bharani. Otherwise called Apa Bharani. Ashwini, Kritika, Rohini, Mridhi.
Okay, again, can you explain? Why are you starting the list of nakshatras with Kritika?
That I have not looked into.
But it's a common understanding that you should start with Kritika.
Yeah.
So if you're starting with Kritika, that means his idea of chanting as sloka for the pada, the third pada of Ashwini will come much later in Vishnu Sahasranam then, correct?
Right.
Actually, in Rami's book, I saw that actually, and I was wondering that myself. He lists in his Shraddha Prayoga Sangraha, he lists Kritika as the first nakshatra and Bharani as the last also. So I guess it might be some system somewhere. So I was wondering how come he did it like that.
So we have to ask him, or we have to ask where the pramana is for starting nakshatras with Kritika, and we have to also ask Chinajir how come he's dividing 107 verses by 108.
Yeah, we don't know where that pramanam for that is, and he actually, like the thing about chanting that one verse, he says chant the whole Vishnu Sahasranama and then chant your particular verse 11 times daily. That's what he says.
Then again, we have to ask why 11 times.
So whoever can meet Chinajir Swamiji and ask him, please do.
That number 11 is significant because when you become 60 in age, you celebrate your 61st birthday. It's called Shashti Abda Purti, as you all know, called Shashti Abda Purti. The completion of the number 60. That is again, 60 is because of the cycle of 60 Tamil years named in Sanskrit. It's called Tamil here, but named only in Sanskrit. Prabhava, Vibhava, and so on. Today, now we have Vikari. The next one is Sharvari. So here, they see in those days, mortality rate was very high, and therefore living up to the 60 was itself a wonder. And then they prayed to God for the longevity of an individual, and then therefore started the celebration of the 61st birthday. So while you celebrate the 61st birthday, especially the Advaitins will celebrate it with what we call Rudram and perhaps Chamakam also. But when they recite Rudram, they will do it 11 times. And 11 priests will do that. So 121 times the Rudram will be chanted. Why again 11? Why again 121? We do not know. But the 11 times. 11 times will be. So that is why many people mistake it as the Ekadashi. It is not Ekadashi. It is Ekadashini. It's a feminine gender word which means 11 times Rudra Shruti. Shruti, as you know, feminine. We discussed earlier. Shruti being feminine. It has been chanted 11 times by 11 priests.
I think
That's
also
for the longevity of the health of the individual.
I think also it's mentioned in Shastra that there are 11 forms of Rudra. So Rudra has got 11 forms. So this may have this may be the reason why they chant 11 times. But also this cycle of 60 years, it is called a Jovian cycle because it has to do with the circumambulation of Jupiter around the sun. So when Jupiter goes one time around, that takes 60 years. So, and I think somehow there may be a pramana in Shastra that says that a normal human being's life should be 2 cycles. So 120 years is considered to be normal human life. Sripad Ramanujacharya lived for 120 years.
20 years, yeah.
So again, this is there must be some mention of this in some Shastras, perhaps Jyotish Shastra.
Right.
So it's getting very late.
Yeah.
Well, just two things. I've also heard that with each one of those years, also the meanings of them also is taken as importance for the year. Like apparently, Vikari also means some major problems, and that's why they're saying Vikari year. Coronavirus is there, and then Sarvari also means something. So that's quite interesting. And the last thing I wanted to ask a favor of Keshava Swami, if by chance you can provide that Pancha Yuja Stotram. I know you gave it in archives, but the Devanagari print is really hard to read, and then it doesn't correspond so much to the transliteration that they gave from that archive book. But if you could, those 2 stotrams, I think is Dwadashanam Panjara Stotram. If you could do probably a document so that I could also add that to the end of the Vishnu Sahasranam. I don't know if
Yes,
Shanta Mataji would also appreciate that.
I can do that. I can do that, and I can also put it in whatever font, whatever script. If Mrs. Varadarajan, Mami, if she wants in Kannada script, I can put it in Kannada script for you. So as you like.
She might know that we have the practice of reciting Panchayata Stotram after Vishnu Sahasranamam, and then Dwadashanama Panchara Stotram. Again, the Apadam Apahartaram and so on, up to what we call Alodya Sarva Shastrani, then Kayena Vacha, and finally asking for excuse, Dakshara Padabra.
I only learned that recently, so that's why I wanted to add that in, because I think those stotrams are very nice, and it's just that the copy I have, it's very difficult to read the Devanagari even, but I prefer it in the Roman IAST, it's just faster for me anyway, but even Devanagari is fine.
Svadayan niha sarvesham sayantartham sudagraham Satrayamasa yogindras sambandhe yamunapaya Namo namo yamunaya namo namaha नमो नमो यामुनाय यामुनाय नमो नमः
यत्पदां
यत्पदाम्भोर्गध्यान विध्वस्ताशेषकल्मषः वस्तुतामुपयातोऽहं यामुनेयं नमामि तम् कवितार्किकसिंहाय कल्याणगुणशालिने श्रीमते वेङ्कटेशाय वेदान्तगुरवे नमः
कवितार्किकसिंहाय कल्याणगुणशालिने श्रीमते वेङ्कटेशाय वेदान्तगुरवे नमः।